Have you considered at all the possibility of maybe taking over play calling for that unit?
No. We're trying to improve in every area, and defensively, I think there's some things we're doing well and some things that we have to improve on. But that has not crossed my mind at this time.
In saying that, obviously, that would be, I guess, a vote of confidence in some ways for the job that Bobby is doing. How do you evaluate that 6 games in right now?
Yeah, listen, I have a lot of confidence in Bobby and our defensive staff. I thought they made some real good adjustments last night in the second half in particular. At halftime, we came out and played really well after half. But overall, again, within our building, I'm confident in the people in our building, whether it's this situation or other situations, that we can get the job done.
Game.
Yeah, so what I have for you is DQ, Daquan Jones will be week to week with that calf that I mentioned to you after the game. Joshua Palmer week to week as well. We're dealing with what he incurred last night in the I think it was the early second quarter. And then Milano, Dalton Kincaid, Curtis Samuel, Terrell Bernard, all day to day, and dealing with what they're dealing with, and then Max Harrison. We'll see how things look going forward. Right now, he continues to head in the right direction, and there's a chance that we'll open up his practice window in the coming week here.
Thanks.
Sure.
How do you deal with this bye week and knowing that you've got some reinforcements on the way, especially on the defensive side with Larry and Michael, and also knowing that some of these injured guys are day to day and could be back in time for are expected back in time for Carolina?
Yeah, it'll be good to get these two guys back in the mix. With the injuries that we have in particular, and we'll see how it all unfolds, right? Who's available, who's not. We won't really know again until we get back going a little bit next week here with the guys, and but it certainly will help in terms of numbers and guys who have played.
How do you treat those two guys coming back?
No, it's a little bit of an interesting situation, somewhat unique when you practice in training camp, then you go on this hiatus, if you will, and then you come back and practice again, and it's natural to expect that there's going to be some knocking off of the rust, and so we have to manage our expectations with that.
When it comes to James Cook's availability and the fact that he wasn't on the field for much of the fourth quarter, in key situations, how do you and Joe address that? And is it a concern that you didn't have some of your, given how depleted you were in some places on offense, how much of a concern is it that one of your best threats wasn't on the field?
Yes, those are things we talk about. And Joe and I have already talked about that to some extent today as we were evaluating the film. So it's an important thing that we keep in mind as we move forward.
Thanks, Sean.
Sure.
After watching tape, what's your assessment overall?
Well, I'm confident in the people we have in this building, number one. Two is, we can certainly perform at a higher level, and we need to. We need to do our jobs, know our jobs, do our jobs, and be there for one another. And so that accountability piece is important for us as we move forward, and it's always been one of the fabrics of who we are as a team.
So I was thinking maybe you go to our odd and keep that center occupied at times sometimes.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit. We talk about a lot of things during the week and then during the game in terms of adjustments. But Deion made some good plays as well. He's a young player. He's going to have some growing pains, and unfortunately, a couple of those moments were big plays for them. So we entertained just about everything under the stars, as you could imagine.
What goes into those conversations with Bobby for maybe getting the defense, better prepared, more ready to play?
No, that's a fair question. Just overall, it's making sure we're emphasizing what we need to emphasize, but not trying to emphasize everything, but being specific on what we need to emphasize week to week based on the game plan or the opponent, and then making sure that we are executing our fundamentals. So it just, some of it is a little bit big, is big picture, and some of it's more of the details, and just based on my experience of being in that position for a number of years. So Again, I really appreciate the way that they adjusted. Led by Bobby in the second half, but we got to get off to a better start. We can't, get down 21 points, not down 21 nothing, but at the same time give up 21 points in a quarter and change, and it's just not a great formula to start a game with. Well, it is number one in terms of what I've addressed with Joe, and two is, like I mentioned, I feel we're better than that, and we need to handle that better next time.
The guys that you have behind Ed at D tackle, even the ones who have been called upon from the practice squad, and what they can give you there.
Well, yeah, I mean, last night, we went into it. We went in with 4, right, with Ed being up. Ed hadn't been up in a number of weeks. We had Dion up. We had Jordan Phillips up. Jordan, coming off the practice squad and whatnot, and being here, a few weeks, but also missing a week due to a family matter. And then DQ goes down in pregame warm up, probably our most grooved or consistent defensive lineman to this point in the season. So that hurt us, but it's not an excuse. We got to step in, and we have full confidence in the guys that went in there, that we only were able to rotate 3 of them for the most part. But I think all 3 of them had some good moments, and all 3 have some moments that they can grow from. And, I remain confident in them, just like I do Joe on the question earlier. I mean, I'm very, very confident in Joe Brady and his ability to move us forward as an offense here. Again, when you go into a bye week in particular, you have a little bit more time on your hands to really hunker down and study things, study scheme, study all the hot spots, if you will. And that's what I've asked the coordinators to do, is let's identify the problems, and then let's get together on it and figure out the solutions and the best way forward. So in this case, it's evaluating personnel and making sure that we've got the right people in the right places, and that can get the job done here for us.
So your quarterback isn't under duress at times like he was, especially when they were blitzing as often as they were.
No, I mean, they're a talented group. I mean, you saw it. They have ways to get after the quarterback, and we've got to do a good job of making sure that our quarterback doesn't get affected. And I thought our offensive line did a pretty good job at that at times, and we used some play action and things to protect the pocket. Then there was other times where I thought we can do some things, could have done some things, and can do some things going forward where we need to make an adjustment so that Josh is not affected, especially early in the game, and because that can kind of affect the game and how the game's played and how the quarterback plays. And listen, it's no different than what we try and do to opposing quarterbacks. You want to affect the quarterback early, and it tends to have a ripple effect later in the game. So that's something that we have to continue to look at.
How would you just evaluate that position as a whole? I know you guys are pretty banged up there right now, but specifically with Tre'Davious White and then Christian Benford.
Yeah, so CB, went down for a little bit last night, and then J. Mark and Trey were out there, and I thought all 3 of them had some good moments, and then some things that they want back. So we've got to continue to move our team in the right direction, and their play is going to be pivotal for us as we move forward here. So I remain confident in those 3 guys.
What have you been able to do over the years that has led to you guys getting out of these lulls that you sometimes find yourself in? Kind of, it's almost always like right around this time of year too. Even if you look at the last couple of years, it seems to be early on or like a little bit into the season, and then you guys are able to go on a run coming out of it.
No, you're right. Having said that, I think one of the things that we talked about, one of the things we talked about as a team is sticking together. That's where it starts, and in order to make adjustments and move in the right direction, everyone's got to be in it together. So that's really where it starts, and that connection has got to be intact. And then from there, you can, look to move forward. It's not going to be easy, but we all have a job to do, and we all have to be accountable to one another, and work so hard that we're not going to let each other down. And that's really been the recipe for us in the past. And who knows this year, but we're going to work our tails off to get it done. And I'm very confident that people in this building that we can get it done. It's just going to happen one day at a time at this point. No, it is. It is. But we find ourselves in it, right? So we got to find our way out of it too. And I think the biggest thing, honestly, for Max is, managing expectations. When you miss all of that time in training camp, mentally, physically, the playbook and then the physical part and the build up, the ramp up of training camp and preseason games, and then the start of the season. So just trying to be realistic with it and manage expectations on, hey, let's just go out there and take it one day at a time when we do open up the window. And it's not going to be perfect. And he's got to understand that, and we have to understand that. So it's just like I said, one day at a time at this point.
How do you feel that group is dealing with the managing expectations, like you mentioned?
Well, I mean, if you want to go through it, we've got, Max, I'm just going down the order, TJ, both been hurt. Take me through, Catherine, who you have questions about, I guess. You can go right down the draft order if you want. Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the challenge is, some of these guys have been unhealthy and not able to play. And, Max, and then Dorian's out, and then TJ and so, Landon, you asked about Landon, he didn't play early. Now he's been playing. So that experience is good for him. And I think he's gotten a little bit better each game. But with a lot of work to do, like all of us, right? So it's a journey for all these guys, and it's never easy, right? People think it's the NFL, this is going to be fun and everything, and it is. It should be fun, but at the same time, it's a job, and the way the league ebbs and flows week to week is hard for a lot of these guys, and but mentally they got to stay tough and stay strong through it.
We're better than that. Can you explain a little more what you mean by that?
Well, Joe's a great offensive coordinator. He's a great play caller, right? He knows, and no one's going to be perfect, right? But you go through a game, and there's always calls you want back, and he knows that how I feel about that situation. We talked about it, had a great conversation again this morning, and those are ones in the heat of the moment that you're like, I want that one back, and listen, at the end of the day, whatever play we call, we got to execute at a higher level as well. So that's a piece of it. But I remain confident, very confident in Joe and his ability to put us into the right situations and put our players in good positions on offense.
When you talk about how to address a big situation like that, is there a philosophy that takes a level of development or a period of time to develop to where you and the guys who are working with you are on the same page?
In terms of my leadership, or
in terms of the philosophy, how you want those situations approached from a play calling point of view?
Well, we've discussed them before, and then we had to revisit them. We revisited them this morning again, and I wanted them to know that as an offensive staff, we talked about it collectively, and sometimes it's just Joe and I. Sometimes it's we meet as a full staff there offensively, and so it's just making sure that we're clear on philosophically what we believe in and how we want to get it done.
We are trying to win games this season, and I need to do what's best for the guys, this team this year.
Well, ultimately, that's my responsibility to this team and this organization is to make decisions like that. And at the end of the day, I have to put the team first. That's my job, and that's what I owe to this community as well. And so, again, Bobby's young in this position. He works extremely hard. He's gifted, and play calling is one of the harder things to do in this business. And so he'll learn from it, and some things he wants back. But again, I thought the adjustments yesterday in the second half were really good for us. Well, this past week, so last night's game, we had one where there was a miscommunication in the game. Some guys were playing one coverage, and the other side of the defense was playing another coverage. And Shaq hasn't been. It's not placing blame at all. It's more about like why we're looking at the root of why it happened and unfolded that way. And sometimes when you have a new player at the middle linebacker position, the communication is a little bit different than when TV is in there and whatnot. And so, it had been a few weeks since Shaq had played the middle linebacker position, and then a few weeks even more since Dorian had been back playing the will linebacker position. So when TV went down, there was a little bit of a ripple effect there. So I thought both those guys did some good things when they came in, but sometimes the communication is just a little bit different. And at that point, it wasn't collectively what we needed to have happen as an overall defense, as you saw.
How have you judged how he's progressed in coverage, whether it's,
filling in for Matt this year, or even last night coming off an injury?
Well, he was coming off an injury. He'd been out, I don't know, two weeks maybe. And I thought he really handled himself well in terms of playing physical, playing strong, making it through the game. He was playing special teams on top of that. Initially, his role coming into the game was just going to be special teams for the most part. And so then he was forced into playing on defense there, and I thought he handled himself well. Like all of us, he wants some of those plays back. And again, with experience, I think he's only going to get better.
Both your kick returns and your kickoffs, how would you assess them, so far this season?
Yeah, I thought, to this point in the season, in terms of our kickoff coverage, and we gave up, I think one big one to, I think it was Baltimore, and maybe another one to Miami. But after that, we've kind of settled in, and I really liked what I saw last night in the last kind of week or two of our coverage units. We're now starting to see some guys step in and make some plays and really start to understand their roles. I was sitting with Coach Tabor earlier today, and we were discussing just that what you asked about. So, and then the return game, I really like to see us. Last night it's a game of one-on-ones. Last night we weren't winning some of those one-on-ones in our blocks to try and free up Beacott there. So we really couldn't get them started. So I'll expect that we'll do a better job with that moving forward. And I know Coach Taves and Coach West will study that this week.
Are you looking at with this team going into the bye week, like hoping to accomplish with that?
It's a great question, Elena. I think the biggest thing is it's really where you have to start. You start every year at ground zero and work your way back up to where you currently are, and because you need to make sure that the foundation, there's nothing in the foundation that needs to be fixed. And with the way the last two games have gone, we've had some good moments, but I also want to kind of look under the hood a little bit more and making sure that we've got everything underneath in terms of the foundation, that it's helping us. And from the way we practice to the way we meet to what we emphasize to what we're asking our players to do to all the jobs that all of our players have and all that type of stuff. So right now, just coming off of this game, we're just really putting this game to bed. And I already have a list of things that I wrote down heading into this past week that I wanted to make sure we were intentional about. So the coordinators would tell you, I texted them on the plane and said, hey, these are the things I want to know about and we need to meet on. So it's usually a good conversation. We've got a great staff. Our staff works extremely hard, and I'm looking forward to coming out of this with some good solutions. We turn over some dirt here and kind of till the soil a little bit. We'll find something.
Typical for how you approach a bye week, or do you feel like it's even more with like how these last two games have gone?
We'll be consistent. That's how I am. I think that's the best way to approach things. And when you've been through it now a number of years, you kind of know where to look first. But yet every year is a little bit different too. It takes on its own personality. So we'll find those areas that are specific to this season and make sure we try and spend due time where we need to spend as well.